My guest is someone I've known for a very, very long time. In fact, if you've been in the field of data, AI, and analytics, you probably know him very well as well. He and I worked together twice, two different companies, Microsoft and most recently at Google. 4 years, in fact, almost to this day, we were announcing that I was joining him at Google. And well, today we are reunited again, and we got some really important news for you that we thought we would use the CarCast to share with you. Now, this CarCast, of course, is not just about the two of us. It's about the most important topic that has been top of mind for all of you, at least since November 30th, 2022. How are you going to make Gen AI work? Now, today, my guest and I are going to talk about what it takes for you to win with Gen AI. We're going to talk about customers who have succeeded with Gen AI. He's a good friend of mine, so I'm going to grill him on giving me the specifics. I want to know how customers choose the right solution, how they set a budget, how they pick their first use case, who they put in charge of their Gen AI deployment, how do they measure the success of that deployment, how quickly you should expect results. There are literally millions of questions. Many of you, by the way, have sent me those questions. So I'm going to try and tackle as many as I can. So why don't we just get started? My guest is none other than Chief Product Officer at Neo4j, my good friend Sudhir Hasby. Sudhir, I know we've got some great news for our audience, but before we get there, let's talk about you. If people still don't know you, which I can't believe would be possible, but let's imagine that is, tell me about you. Who are you?
Hey, Bruno, it's great to be here with you. So as you mentioned, I'm Chief Product Officer at Neo4j. I basically work with some of our leading customers to understand their requirements, what trends are happening in the industry, define our product strategy, and do focus on execution. Prior to joining Neo4j, I was leading data analytics at Google Cloud, including the large portfolio, which includes BigQuery, Dataflow, Dataproc, so everything around analytics from getting data in to processing. And I also led the acquisition of Looker at Google. And what I saw was a lot of customers were bringing their data to cloud. They had all this great information centralized, but to get value out of it, I thought graph technology could be really a game changer. And that's how I basically moved from Google to Neo4j. And we'll talk more about this as we go through today. Prior to that, I was VP of Engineering at Zulily, where I built a data platform on top of Google Cloud as well as AWS. Before that, I was in Microsoft. I worked on Xbox. I worked on Azure Data Marketplace, on SQL Azure, BizTalk, Visual Studio, various things. And I'm originally from Bombay, India, or Mumbai, and I started my career as an engineer at an ERP company called Ban. So that's a little bit about me, man.
So you've been around the block, and if you all Google Sudhir's name and my name, you'll find that we shipped one of the first data marketplaces together years and years ago. So before we get into the special announced today, if you're not one of the 6 million people that following the CarCast everywhere it's syndicated, make sure that you comment, that you like this video. More importantly, that you subscribe to the channel, because that's how you're going to be alerted as our new videos drop. And boy, we have a lot coming at you over the next few months. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss any episode. So take a second now, click the subscribe button and a little bell that goes with it so you can be on top of all this news. All right, let's get to the announcement, dear. What are we announcing for the two of us today?
So both of us and few of our colleagues are going to be at Databricks conference on 12th of June at 1:40, talking about how to make Gen AI work.
And this is going to be an amazing session. I'm sure people expected something else on today's announce, but 1:40 p.m. San Francisco, June 12th, that's next Wednesday, Databricks conference. It's 40 minutes, but if you know Sudhir and I, you know that it's going to be really hard to get off of stage. The whole point is to make sure we answer your questions. So if you have any, you're going to want to drop them here in comment or just DM me like many of you do every week. This is a session you're not going to want to miss. In fact, we're going to give you a teaser of what we're going to talk about today so you get a sense of some of the themes that we have in mind. So most important thing, it's customer. I always like to talk about that. So Sudhir, of your customers that are succeeding today, what are they doing? What are some of the patterns and trends that you've been observing?
I've been working with customers, I don't know, across the globe. I just returned from Brazil just last week, met with various customers. And of course, Gen AI is top of mind for everybody. And so there are three key patterns or kinds of scenarios that I'm seeing take off with our customer base, right? First is personalized experiences for their employees and their customers. And we can talk more about it. It's basically how do you use large language models to provide better personalized experiences. So that's first one. The second one is there is so much unstructured data within organizations. Organizations have parts manuals. There are documents that are sitting there in large storage systems, and people want to unlock the value from unstructured data. So I think that's the second area where we're working with one of the largest oil and gas companies, which basically is taking all of this unstructured data, converting it into a knowledge base, and then providing that access to that through chatbot experiences. So that's one. Second category is this unstructured data, unlocking value out of it. And the third one where I've seen is people that have centralized their knowledge into a kind of a knowledge graph or knowledge base. How do we make it more accessible to everybody within the organization? So it's basically those are the three primary kinds of scenarios that everybody is working on.
Yeah, and it's fairly typical from when you look to the adoption. There is both the external aspect of creating these compelling customer experiences, but there's also a lot of productivity to be gained with the internal customer, your employees getting to the information that they couldn't get to before, either because it was not searchable or just not accessible through natural interfaces. Now, often people thinking about these use cases, they got to think about the value, but they also have to think about the cost. There's research that shows that 40% of companies take budget away from other technology into Gen AI to make it succeed. Is that your observation as well? And is that even a good idea to do it that way?
Actually, I'm seeing a lot of moving of budgets, right? I think the focus on Gen AI has been so much across leadership in various organizations. What we have noticed is if it is nothing to do with Gen AI, it's harder to find new budgets for projects. And it's good or bad. That's how the scenarios are. And so we see a lot of organizations finding money through moving budgets and all. I will give you one great example, and it's all various different types. But in this case, one of the larger retail organizations, they have a couple of million plus employees worldwide, and they wanted to do something for their employees from career management and centralizing knowledge base across all of their employees so they can help them grow. And so they were
Mhm.
like, originally the plan was to just go ahead and centralize the knowledge in a knowledge graph and then make it accessible. But when they realized like, hey, you can make it much better experience if you can make it a Gen AI project, provide a chat experience rather than some other tooling and other experiences. And the whole project took its own life cycle around, hey, convert this into a Gen AI initiative, and then the budget was reallocated. But the value to the users is going to be way more now. And of course, budget grew and everything. But fundamentally, it was like, okay, how do we simplify experience for all these employees? So great example, as you were saying, are we reallocating budget? No, we're solving the same problem, but solving it better for the employees within the organization.
And that's the trade-off people have to make, right? Is are you using from the same pie size, or you're growing the pie because you're able to show
Yeah,
value and maybe find better, more budget from other departments. So that's for
exactly.
budget, and we'll get to tackle this during
Yeah,
the session. I know that's top of mind for people because the range can be gigantic. It can become $1 million to double-digit $1 million. So now, of course, with the budget comes the, well, what do we sign this budget to? And your company works across lots of different industries. What
yeah.
are some of the hot use cases that you're seeing, and how are people prioritizing those use cases?
I think this is a long topic, and I think we need lot more time. But I will give you a few examples. Right, we are working with one of the largest financial institutions within the world, and their main thing is they have a knowledge base of all the companies within the world, where their relationship managers are able to go ahead and find which companies to work with, whom to prioritize. And this requires you to bring data from all the different sources, centralize it. So every startup to every large company is in this massive data set. And then all the funding that they've done, all the new investments that they've done, everything is centralized. And so relationship managers need to be able to find new opportunities to work with these companies. So there's a great example where providing a Gen AI application that is like giving easy access to this information, prioritizing users to focus on the right kind of companies is super valuable. And they are basically using, they're primarily on AWS, but they use OpenAI with the graph technology to go ahead and build this whole chat experience. So this is one example of financial services focused on internal employees, but focused on improving the service they can provide to their customers. Completely on a different side, we have retail companies that are basically taking the information that is in their retail catalog in the graph and then enabling personalized experiences like marketing campaigns, or even the customer support person sending the email is now able to find, hey, the product was delayed. Let's find all the product characteristics that were there. What was the reason for the delay, and converting that into a personalized email experience, which was super hard in past. You had templatized information in past. Now you have a personalized email. This is where large language models are really good at, right? Like generating that personalized experience. The third example is we work with large manufacturing companies, which they basically have large bill of materials. The problem is all the parts manuals. For example, we're sitting in a car, something goes wrong with the car. One of the employees has to fix it. They need to search all the information. Hey, the engine is a problem, but the engine's parts manual is in very different unstructured data. The other knowledge base is somewhere else. How do we blend them together? So you can do a single search, say what went wrong, let's figure out what problem to solve. So that's another example in manufacturing we have seen. And the best one I have seen is in pharmaceutical, because it's drug discovery. You've seen so much innovation happening in new forms of drugs and all that. And we work with almost every major pharmaceutical company. And what they are doing is they're taking all the research that was part of drug discovery process, these unstructured documents. One of them has like 200 million documents that they've collected throughout their history. And they have all the drugs that were successfully identified in a graph. And so by bringing the graph plus vectors together, they are now able to discover new ways of drugs that may work on new diseases and try to solve problems. And so all of their research R&D departments are using this knowledge graph with vectorization to go ahead and solve new kinds of drugs and new kinds of problems in the industry. So it's across all industries, from financial services to retail to manufacturing to pharmaceuticals and way more. And as I was saying, we will need way more time. And I think on June 12th, we'll be able to discuss a lot more.
Absolutely. And as all you can see here, this is going to be a very instructive panel. It's a fun panel. We saw here, we talked about internal customers, external customers. We haven't even touched on infusing AI into existing applications. We'll make sure we talk about. Sudhir is a professional, tremendous experience. I'm going to make it hard for him to get off the stage as well. And he's also going to be joined by two other folks who we will unveil throughout this week. So sharpen your pencils, get your notes, get your questions ready. This is going to be a tremendous session next week, Wednesday, June 12th, 1:40 p.m., Databricks conference. If you have questions for us, DM me, comment, like, share this, so we can make sure that we can tackle as many questions for you. We can't wait to meet all of you next week. When again, Sudhir? Next week, June 12th.
June 12th, 1:40 p.m.
Databricks conference. I can't wait to hang out with you, Sudhir, and I'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you